right, so get this. We're going deep today, like way deep into one of history's weirdest mysteries. It's the dancing plague of 1518. You've probably heard of it, right? Like just a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Most people just know like the name and that's it.
Yeah, but trust me, it's way crazier than like whatever you've heard. Just imagine, like just picture a world where everyone is super stressed.
Right.
And suddenly everyone starts dancing.
It's like not for fun.
Yeah, not for fun at all. Not for any reason, really. Just like they can't help themselves. Like some crazy urge or something.
Yeah. That's what we're talking about today, this thing called mass psychogenic illness. That's where a bunch of people start acting really weird, like all the same weird behaviors, and like out of nowhere.
So this is like a real thing then, not just like a medieval fairy tale kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely a real thing. And like it's happened all over throughout history. There were these nuns in a Spanish convent back in 1491, and they all started acting like cats and dogs. And then like there was this laughing epidemic in Tanganyika in 1962.
See, I knew it.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one who finds this stuff like totally creepy, right?
Yeah.
The idea that your brain can just take over your body and you can't control it, that's terrifying.
Absolutely. It really shows you how connected our minds and bodies really are. But today we're focusing on the big one, the dancing plague of 1518. And the sources on this one are, well, they're pretty detailed. It's crazy. Even with everything we know now about psychology and medicine and all that, it's still a bit of a mystery.
Okay, so let's go back in time, back to 1518, to Strasbourg. It's a city that's already seen better days, famine, disease, the works, and a brutal winter, like super cold. Can you imagine? The price of bread is crazy high. There are starving people in the streets, and diseases like leprosy and syphilis are like everywhere.
Oh, total nightmare, like a pressure cooker,
Yeah.
And then into all of this, into this mess, this woman, Fra Trofea, steps out onto the street. It's July, like the middle of summer, so it's like sweltering hot, and she starts dancing. Yeah. No music, no reason, just dancing. Like totally out of control. And she keeps going like, get this, for a whole week.
A whole week?
Right.
No way. Like without stopping.
Nonstop, or at least that's what the people who wrote about it at the time said. And it's not like she was just, swaying a little or tapping her foot. Like she was going crazy. The sources describe her dancing as wild, almost like frantic, like she was in some kind of trance.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty intense. I can see how people would have been freaked out.
Yeah.
But it gets worse, right? I mean, she wasn't alone for long, was she?
No, not at all. Within a few days, dozens of others joined in.
Really?
All dancing like crazy. Like imagine that. You're just walking down the street and your neighbor comes out and starts doing this wild dance. Then another person and another.
That would be terrifying.
Absolutely. People were panicking.
Panicking, that's an understatement.
Yeah.
So what did they do? I mean, how do you even stop something like that?
Well, you'd think they'd try to calm everyone down, right? Like get them some medical help or something. But instead, they actually encouraged the dancing.
What? They actually thought that was a good idea.
They thought that if everyone just danced it out, they'd get it out of their systems and the plague would stop. So they set up these giant dance halls, brought in musicians, like a huge party.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Talk about adding fuel to the fire. That's the opposite of what you want to do, right?
Yeah, it backfired big time. More and more people got caught up in it. Just made the whole thing worse.
So now there are hundreds of people dancing out of control, and the authorities are making it worse. And I'm guessing this is where things start to get, well, supernatural.
You got it. It was a time when religion and superstition were a huge part of people's lives. So they started looking for someone or something to blame.
And who better to blame than a saint, right?
Right.
Enter Saint Vitus.
Right. St. Vitus was, people believed he had power over dancing and seizures. So they started to think he was behind this whole thing, like it was a curse or something.
So how do you break a curse from a saint who apparently loves making people dance?
Back then, you appease him, of course. So they took these dancers up to a mountain shrine dedicated to St. Vitus, made them wear red shoes, sprinkled them with holy water.
Red shoes?
Yeah. And they made them hold crosses, and they chanted all this stuff in Latin, like the whole 9 yards.
Wow. They really went all out. But did it work? Did the dancing stop?
Well, it did eventually fade away, but not because of the saint, I don't think. And that's the thing about this whole thing, We have all these accounts, all this detail, but we still don't really know what caused it.
Okay, so we've got this historical mystery. We've got a city full of crazy dancers, and we've got supernatural explanations that well, don't really explain anything. What's next? Where do we go from here?
Well, in the next part, we're going to look at some of the theories that people have come up with to explain this whole thing. From ergot poisoning to, you guessed it, mass psychogenic illness.
All right, I'm ready for part 2. Let's get to the bottom of this.
So, you ready to dive into some theories about the dancing plague?
Yeah, hit me. What have we got?
Okay, well, one of the early theories was ergot poisoning.
Ergot poisoning. What's that?
Well, it's like this fungus. It grows on rye. And if people eat the bread made from the contaminated rye, they can get, like, really sick.
Sick how?
Like hallucinations, convulsions, that sort of thing. It even has a chemical that's similar to LSD, so, that might explain the dancing.
Oh, wow. LSD bread. No wonder they were dancing.
Right. But there's a problem with that theory.
What's that?
Well, if ergot poisoning was so common, why wasn't everyone, dancing all the time?
That's true. I mean, they ate bread a lot back then, right?
Exactly. Plus, ergot poisoning usually causes muscle spasms, not this rhythmic dancing that went on for days. And the dancing plague seemed to be pretty localized, to specific areas along certain rivers, and those areas weren't particularly known for ergot contamination.
Okay, so scratch the bad bread theory. What else could it be? We talked about that mass psychogenic illness thing before. Is that like the main theory now?
Pretty much. Remember the nuns we talked about? The ones acting like cats and dogs? And that laughing epidemic?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, just on a bigger scale.
Okay, but remind me, how does that work exactly? Is it like contagious? Like if I see someone freaking out, do I start freaking out too?
Well, it's not like a virus. You can't catch it like that. But picture this. You're in Strasbourg, right? In 1518, you're already stressed because, well, you're barely surviving. And then your neighbor, they just come out and start dancing like a maniac. And then someone else joins in, and another and another. Pretty soon, everyone's doing it.
Yeah, that would be super freaky.
Totally. And back then, people believed in curses and, demonic possession.
Yeah, but I bet that didn't help.
So their brains are trying to explain this crazy thing that's happening, right? And what's the most logical explanation? Exactly. Some supernatural force. And the more people who start dancing, the more you start to think, well, maybe it is contagious.
So it's like the fear itself is contagious.
Yeah.
And that fear makes you dance.
Right. And in Strasbourg, with the famine, disease, and all that, the stress levels were already super high. So it's like the perfect storm for this kind of mass hysteria.
But wouldn't some people be immune to that? Like not everyone would just start dancing, right?
Of course not. Everyone's different. Some people are more suggestible than others. Some people are more likely to be influenced by what other people are doing.
So you're saying some people were just predisposed to join in the dancing frenzy?
In a way, yeah. And then there's the social and cultural factors too. Remember the whole St. Vitus thing?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that belief, that shared narrative, it would made people even more susceptible to the plague.
Because it gives them an explanation, right? Like, okay, I'm terrified, but at least I know why this is happening.
Yeah.
It's St. Vitus, and if I dance long enough, maybe you'll stop cursing me.
Yeah, something like that. But here's another thing that's interesting. If it's all in their heads, then why were people collapsing from exhaustion? Why did some people even die from dancing?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Well, here's the thing. Even though mass psychogenic illness is psychological, the symptoms are real. These people weren't faking it. They were really exhausted, in real pain.
So their bodies were reacting to the stress and the physical exertion of dancing for days.
Exactly. Their minds might have been tricking them, but their bodies were paying the price.
Wow, so this is like a real mind-body connection thing, huh? It's crazy to think that something psychological could have such a powerful physical effect.
It is pretty amazing, right? And what's even more amazing is that this isn't just some ancient history. It still happens today, all over the world.
Really? What, like the dancing plague? Are people still doing that?
Not exactly. But in our next part, we'll talk about some more modern examples of mass psychogenic illness, and we'll discuss how this phenomenon might be even more relevant today than it was back in 1518.
Okay, I'm hooked. Bring on part 3. So we've been talking about this medieval mystery, right? The dancing plague of 1518. And it seems like the best explanation is this mass psychogenic illness.
Yeah.
But you were saying this isn't just something from, way back when. This kind of thing still happens.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Think about it. We live in a world that's way more stressful than it used to be.
Right.
We're constantly bombarded with information, most of it bad news. We're glued to our phones, comparing ourselves to everyone else. There's this constant pressure to be, on all the time.
So you're saying Our modern lifestyle is basically like a breeding ground for this mass psychogenic illness.
Kind of, yeah. And we're seeing it pop up in some interesting ways. Have you heard of wind turbine syndrome?
Wind turbine syndrome? No. What's that?
Or like cell phone sickness? It's where people, they start experiencing all these symptoms, headaches, fatigue, nausea, that kind of thing, and they blame it on wind turbines or like the radiation from cell phones.
Wait, are you saying those aren't like real illnesses?
Well, the science isn't really there to like conclusively link those things with the symptoms people are reporting.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean those people aren't suffering. Like their pain is real. But the root cause might be more in their minds rather than their bodies, you know?
Okay, I think I see what you mean. So if it's not actually the wind turbines or the cell phones, what's going on?
Well, it could be a lot of things. But one thing to think about is the power of suggestion. If you believe that something's harmful, your body might start reacting accordingly, even if there's no real danger.
So like if I read an article about how wind turbines make people sick and I live near a wind farm, I might start like feeling sick.
Yeah.
Just because I expect to.
Yeah. It's totally possible. Our minds are powerful things. They can affect our bodies in crazy ways. We're only beginning to understand it all, really.
That's wild. So is there anything we can do to like protect ourselves from this? I mean, you can't just avoid everything that might be stressful, right?
No, you're right. Stress is a part of life. But you can build up your resilience so you're less susceptible to this mass psychogenic stuff. One of the best things you can do is be a critical thinker. You know, don't believe everything you read online or what your friends tell you.
So like fact check everything before you freak out.
Exactly. And it's also important to like have a good support system. You know, friends, family. When we feel isolated, that's when we're most vulnerable to things like fear and anxiety. But if we have a strong community, it's easier to deal with stuff, right?
Yeah, it's like that saying, a trouble shared is a trouble halved. But what if you're already experiencing symptoms? Like, what should you do then?
First of all, don't panic. It's not a sign of weakness or that you're, crazy or anything. It's just a normal reaction to stress. The best thing to do is talk to a doctor. They can help you figure out what's going on and get you the help you need.
So understanding all of this mass psychogenic stuff, it's really about understanding ourselves, right? Like how our minds and bodies work together and how connected we all are.
That's a great way to put it. Just like those dancers in Strasbourg, we're still figuring it all out, you know? The weird and wonderful ways our minds can mess with us.
But if we talk about this stuff, if we can understand it, maybe we can take away some of its power and make the world a less scary place, you know?
Exactly. So next time you hear about something strange happening, some outbreak or whatever, think about the dancing plague. Ask yourself, what role is fear playing here?
That's a good point.
And what can we do to create a world that's more understanding, more compassionate, and more resilient?
Yeah, those are definitely questions worth thinking about. Well, I think that about wraps it up for us. We've gone from the medieval streets of Strasbourg all the way to the digital age, all thanks to this wild world of mass psychogenic illness.
And what have we learned? The human mind is a powerful thing, mysteriously powerful, and sometimes, kind of mischievous.
Right. What we think, what we believe, it can actually change our reality.
And sometimes that reality can get a little weird.
But if we understand how our minds work, if we can build up our resilience, both as individuals and as a society, then maybe we can make the world a better place. A place where fear and anxiety don't control us.
That's the goal.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. And until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay connected.